We're at a very dangerous point in time because now Ghana is under enormous pressure. So now, and the fact that we are hosting the conference, the summit of the chiefs of staff, tells you the kind of pressure we are being imposed on Ghana. Because there's what I've termed, what do you call it? The Dakar, Yamoussoukro, Accra, Abuja axis. These are the 4 major or important countries in the West African sub-region.
Yamoussoukro.
Yeah, that is Burkina, Abidjan. Cote d'Ivoire.
Cote d'Ivoire. Yamoussoukro is Cote d'Ivoire is Abidjan.
No, that's the economic capital. The political capital is actually Yamoussoukro.
Okay.
And then, but these are 4 countries which are very important in West Africa. But also evenly divided. 2 francophone, 2 anglophone. And now Nigeria, taking a very hawkish position, have gained the commitment of, what do you call it, the remaining 2 francophone countries. So Ghana not committing itself to a military intervention kind of put Nigeria in a very dangerous position, because in case they go and intervene and they succeed, Nigeria will have difficulty in shaping the post-coup plans in, what do you call it, in Niger. And that's what Nigeria is trying to avoid. And that's why we are hosting the summit, because there are pressures here and there. But then, within the so-called francophone side too, there's this tacit rivalry between Ivory Coast and Senegal, and that is what is motivating Alassane Ouattara. First of all, we must understand that Abidjan is core, is the glue that binds France-Afrique as a policy in West Africa. But in the colonial days, Senegal used to be the darling boy of France. So whilst if you're born in another part of
Maybe it was because of Senghor?
No. In the colonial era, when you're born in other part of West African territory, you were a subject. But we were born in the 4 communes in Senegal: Dakar, Gori, St. Louis, and Rufisque. You're actually a citizen.
Oh, I see.
And so
so they were superior.
They were superior. But with the advent of independence, the balance of power shifted towards Oufé-Boigny and Ivory Coast. And that has always been something the Senegalese, the pro-French, because there's also anti-French sentiment in Senegalese. That's what the pro-French politicians in Senegal don't really like. So that is why Senegal itself is taking lead. Looking at the fact that when we were going to Gambia, Senegal took the initiative. And then, that's for these 2 actors. And then, also, when Anado was elected, he became the spokesperson for Africa through his speeches. And so you could see, and there's this sibling rivalry between Nigeria and Ghana you could see now. So Tinubu is technically trying to reassert himself. But it also have also asked a question that Nigeria lacks a functioning, cabinet at the moment. So how is the decision being made in Nigeria?
Somebody wrote an email to you, I don't know whether you saw it, it was on the platform about this matter. He explained that whatever decision Tinubu makes is taken to mean a cabinet decision.
But that is a very risky gamble. Because if you take it individual and there's a blowback, you suffer the whole pool.
Well, it says the law will consider it to be a cabinet decision.
I'm not looking at the legality of the process. I'm looking at decision making. At the moment where there is no cabinet, is it an individual decision?
He can still engage whoever.
But then legally, you're supposed to govern with the cabinet. So now, we are looking at. You are looking at decision making, because if you look at the team of his appointees at the moment, none of these guys look hawkish, but his position is hawkish. So whose position are we listening? Because these are proven combatants, especially the Chief of Army Staff, Christopher Musa.
When you say his position is hawkish, what do you mean? It's in the ECOWAS treaty that when a coup occurs, this is what happens. What's hawkish about that?
The fact that there's a delay in going to Niger itself tells you there's a deep division within ECOWAS. That is one.
But the division aside, the regulation of ECOWAS is that when a coup occurs, this is how we should react. We go diplomacy after diplomacy. Then
we can even begin to look at ECOWAS past decisions. We can begin to just oppose constitutional coup as against legal
all
coup.
That, but the black and white is that this is what ECOWAS does when a coup occurs. What do you do about
what
that?
What ECOWAS states is that there must be adherence to good governance. There must be no it didn't say military coup actually, unconstitutional change of government. Then we can begin to subject to interpretation, because if you look at unconstitutional, then there are some leaders today who have done unconstitutional decisions.
Okay, so because that happened, we should leave Niger alone.
No, because the concern with Niger is not whether the coup is legal or not. The main concern with Niger is the cost involved. One, Niger is not a small country. Niger is even bigger than Nigeria per size. Yeah. And then, do we have enough numbers to cover the entirety of Niger? And Niger is also not surrounded by.
No, so those are operational issues you are raising.
And that is why people are concerned. People's concern is not the legality of whether going to ECOWAS or not. Those who are against it.
So in terms of considering all of these operational challenges, should we then sacrifice the democracy of Niger?
Well, if images you've seen on the street really tells a story, then we can conclude that Bazoum has lost legitimacy. If that is the fact on the ground. If
you suggest that he's lost popular legitimacy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you are governing on behalf of the people, then at a certain point in time, revolutionary self becomes...
But popular legitimacy is one of the principles of legitimacy that's a variable. So you can be popular today and you will not be popular tomorrow. A decision you make will make you unpopular, and then you make another decision, you become popular. So you have a 4-year and an 8-year period to do that. So with popular legitimacy, it's not a basis why a government has failed or something should change. So political legitimacy, legal legitimacy, yes.
But if you stick by legal legitimacy, then apartheid wasn't a crime, that was legal.
Oh, that's a different argument. But yes, it's true.
That was
even
legal.
Colonialism was not a crime.
If we stick by legality...
Even slave trade was not a crime.
If we stick by legality alone, without using other variables, then Hitler wasn't a criminal. He came to power through election, actually.
Yeah, but slave trade was not a crime.
So, but in this context, if you govern on behalf of the people, the interest is what matters.
Yeah, I'm talking about, you said popular legitimacy, that's what I'm talking about. And popular is a variable. It changes.
Even if we go into Niger today, and we restored Bazoum in power, Bazoum's power is over a fractured country, one.
That's true.
He would forever have questions of legitimacy in his entire period of stay in the country.
Well, maybe, but yeah, so that's the reason why we should sacrifice democracy in Niger?
Well, we've sacrificed democracy for far too long. We just have to...
So we should go ahead and sacrifice democracy in Niger?
Well, we have to sacrifice democracy. Practically at this moment, we have to sacrifice democracy and call for a whole conference that we must adhere to the rules. Because before we look at the symptoms, we must look at the disease itself. What is causing this coup d'etat? Insecurity is just one context. The biggest problem, insecurity may be a concern to the military because they are doing the death on the dying on the battlefield. But the citizens are concerned about basic issues of governance, bread and butter issues. And have any of these leaders met their promise on the campaign ground?
When you look at these countries, all these countries, everything you've said applies to all of them. Applies to Ghana.
And that is why if you look at the...
So that Ghana, there should be a coup in Ghana. It applies to Cote d'Ivoire. It applies to Nigeria.
If you look at the posture of African leaders at the moment, now, as compared to the previous coup, then we can say there's a simple situation whereby you realize that your neighbor's beer is burning, you are trying to put water on yours. Some of them know very well that with the spread of coups, they could be next. But then we may not like...
That means coups are positive in your context.
Well,
some the spread of coups, they should be
some coups are positive. If you look at the outcome of Gaddafi's regime, he came through the coup d'etat, but he did well. If you look at...
But if Gaddafi did well, he wouldn't end up the way he ended up.
Oh, that was a different issue.
Yeah, but he sacrificed democracy.
That was a different issue.
When he left, Libyans didn't even know a lot about the rest of the world.
But the biggest question, who told us democracy is the only way to govern a state?
I understand that, but even enlightenment of his own people was a challenge. That's not democracy. That's the enlightenment of his people. They didn't know what happens in the rest of the world.
No, they knew.
Oh, you haven't read this story. The Libyans didn't know a whole lot of things happening outside Libya. They didn't need to know. Gaddafi gave them everything they wanted. They didn't need to know.
They knew.
Well, they didn't know.
But in that case, the same proponent of democracy today, who went to overthrow Gaddafi, actually killed democracy in the Middle East today. We've seen a coup d'etat in Tunisia.
Let's finish with Africa. Get Ibrahim together.
So now what we are saying is that you could look at his cabinet. At the moment, there is no functioning minister. The list have been released actually, but then none of them is
sworn in.
I think Monday or so. But then this is the National Security Advisor from a civilian background. I don't really know he's
in the police.
Yeah, from the police. More like if you look at the context, he's far from these people. So
I understand.
He's more pro-civilian.
Yeah.
And then so is he the one?
The anti-corruption campaigner, Nuhu Ribadu.
What is his level of influence on Tinubu's decision as a National Security Advisor? We can't tell. You look at another key important figure, his Chief of Staff, Bajabi Amila, another loyal, what do you call it? But then my main concern is that if you look at the appointment here, Tinubu jumped 2 classes to appoint these officers.
Oh, he promoted them times 2?
Yeah, because you have the backlog of
he's clearing the top.
You have the backlog of class 39 and class 38 of Nigerian Defense Academy intake. And these are from class 37.
Oh, I see.
So, with the lack of a better word, let's say a favor, would they be able to tell him what they're supposed to tell him, or they're telling him what he's supposed to hear?
But is it only them he's going to listen to?
Because even the decision to go by force actually has divided Nigeria into two.
Is it as Chief of Defense Staff, Air Force Commander, and the Army Commander?
I brought these three guys because it's going to be an air and a land war. That's why I excluded the naval officer. So you have the Chief of Army Staff, Christopher Musa. He's a proven combatant. He used to be the commander of Operation Hadinkai in the northeast against Boko Haram. You have General Tauli Dragbaja, who is the Chief of, Chief of Army Staff. He was in charge of the anti-banditry operation in the northwest. That freed the Abuja Kaduna Highway from bandits. So these are two proven combatants. These are the Chief of Air Staff. These are the guys that will be taking decision when we are going. But then, even Nigeria is divided along regional lines at the moment. The north is vehemently against. In as much as the whole country is against, the opposition is more strong in the north. So even internally, he's equally
because they are suspecting human rights violations when the action occurs. When the military action occurs in Niger, the concern is that there could be massive human rights violations. If you're going to do an airstrike, you are dropping bombs on people. That's really the concern, or ought to be the concern about the military intervention.
I think for them, the most important first is historic and cultural ties across the borders. That is one for them.
Yes, and you're going to kill them.
And then secondly, they are looking at the fact that even Nigeria itself is not totally secured. So why shifting your attention to your neighboring country when you're not even totally secure?
But that's an ECOWAS treaty. That may be a common sense talk, but
it's
an ECOWAS treaty that Nigeria has signed.
But it doesn't mean the fact that if your neighbor's house is burning and yours is burning, you leave your house without dousing the fire and you're trying to go and douse your neighbor's fire.
But the violation of democracy is not the same.
Yeah, but then let's compare the absence of a cabinet with the appointees that have been assigned portfolios. This is, the incoming Minister of Foreign Affairs. This is a Minister of Defense for State. This is the substantive Minister of Defense. But then the question now is that what would be their influence?
What's their background? Who is Yusuf Tuga?
He's an ex-diplomat and a legislator.
Okay. Senate?
Yeah. No. I think House of Rep.
House of Rep,
if I'm not mistaken. And then he's one of the core Buhari guys from ANPP to CPC era.
Oh, I see.
And then he's the former governor, I think, of Jigawa State. And the former governor of, Zamfara State. But people were questioning the wisdom behind his appointment. Because he was the governor of Zamfara State when Zamfara State was being ravaged by banditry. They felt like, in terms of security, he was virtually incompetent, so why give him this? But if you look at the fact that he's a Minister of Defense, Minister of State for Defense, as against some Minister of Defense, because that he's been subordinate. But Tinubu equally has this character of rewarding loyalty, so it could be that part of. But interestingly, among the materialists, El-Rufai is still missing.
Who's El-Rufai?
That's what El-Rufai. He really stood on the ground to campaign for Tinubu, as against even challenging Buhari's interests. But there are those who have also leveled the economic argument that Nigeria has been motivated by economic concerns.
Oh yeah, the gas pipeline.
About the gas pipeline.
Yeah.
People are saying that Algeria is in support of the coup. They don't really understand the context. Algeria is actually in support of the coup. The statement they made was vague, that they were in support of the status quo. But the status quo in this context could be interpreted to mean stability, because instability is bad for business, and it's bad for them because you have three partners in the pipeline. One, you have the Sonatrach, which is the Algerian oil company. It's a state-owned company. The second partner is Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPC. Then the third partner is the government of Niger. And people feel this is why Nigeria is being concerned. With a change of government, there might be renegotiation and change of agreement that will affect the timeline.
Yeah, but that's a legitimate concern.
Yeah,
it is.
And people felt so it is this concern that is prompting Tinubu to take a frontal approach. But there are those who have said that perhaps has to do with, one, his experience with the June 12th, his activities against Abacha to restore Abiola's mandate.
Oh yeah.
Actually,
what has that got to do with anything?
His response to the coup.
Whose response?
Tinubu.
To this coup.
To this coup.
Okay.
Because of his past experience.
His experience with being with Abiola and the violation of
and the fact that he has to flee Nigeria.
The results,
and that could be shaping his own,
the circumstances that gave birth to Abacha.
Yeah,
okay.
And that could be shaping his own narrative. And then people
so you are saying that philosophically has made him increase his resistance to coups.
Yeah, anti-coup.
Okay.
And then they also look at it from this perspective. His rivalry with Obasanjo. When Obasanjo was in office, Nigeria was very assertive across West Africa. That it is now his time to prove
he's able to do the same.
He's able to do the same. So there is also this. If you look at the first speech he made when he emerged as ECOWAS leader, he made a very profound statement that Nigeria is back. There are those that feel that is just part of this assertive. And there are those also have argued that he's trying to use international, or this international crisis to gain legitimacy because he has he won a disputed election. There's a hardcore element within Nigeria's field of not recognize his mandate, the obedient, quote and unquote, who still believe that it was a stolen mandate. Perhaps he's also using this crisis to cement his international acceptability and legitimacy. That could also be influencing it. But then, these are so far the countries that have committed troops, confirmed. And apart from Ivory Coast, which has stated either 850 to 1,100 soldiers, these ones have not disclosed the number of troops they are sending. But then we could look at the rough estimate.
It excludes Ghana?
Yeah, it excludes Ghana. But then in terms of logistics, Nigeria at the moment has enough resources in terms of both domestic and imported weapons. Now they boosted their domestic, what do you call it. But then let's look at the structure of, this is a regional equation, but then let's look at the structure of the military junta itself. Unlike in Mali, where it was mostly led by special forces, the one in Mali, the one in Guinea, and the one in Burkina Faso. But in this instance, the army itself looked divided on paper. You have the Presidential Guard Commander who started the putsch itself and was aided with Salif Umodi. Because Salif Umodi actually used to be the chief of army staff and was eased out and sent to UAE as ambassador. And his replacement is Abu Isaka. So what is the relationship between Salif Umodi and Isaka Abudu? If they're on the same wavelength, that could strengthen his hold. But if ECOWAS is able to create a division within this unit, because General Salou Barmu, for example, is the point man for the international forces in Niger. There was this issue about France violating the Nigerian airspace when they landed their military aircraft. But then France later showed evidence whereby they were given permission to land actually by Salou Barmu. So did he give them the permission with the knowledge of Chiani because the military junta later said they violated or not? So if ECOWAS is also able to look at these differences and exploit it, they could break the rank of the junta, and that could lead to a successful intervention. But if it doesn't happen and we get bogged down, which is where I have a problem with Ghanaian troops going actually to Niger. Niger is big. And then as a most stable country in the sub-region, there's going to be refugee inflow. If you look at them up here, we happen to be one of the most stable. We have to shoulder a lot of refugees burden. Do we really have the resources to contain that? We also need to look at that very well. So the decision making, the issue on the plate of the president is actually very, very heavy. And I hope cool heads will be.
Super. Powerful analysis. Very, very solid. Always coming from Al Hassan Bello.